When you're going to recommend all the recommendations.
Johnston.
Thank you for your answer, but
Would be likely to do that.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Attorney-General. Attorney, you are well aware that Tasmania has the weakest integrity laws in the country. We now have a Tasmanian Electoral Commission report which finds that successive Tasmanian governments may have carried out, and I use the Commission's words, indirect electoral bribery through the distribution of grants at election time. But the Integrity Commission also found that the TEC has been hamstrung by a lack of specific powers and resources to the extent that it is not possible for it to enforce compliance with our corrupt practices provisions of the Tasmanian Electoral Act. Attorney, surely you agree this is a disgraceful state of affairs. Attorney, will you guarantee the proposed Electoral Matters Bill will provide real teeth and direction for the TEC to investigate corrupt practices? And Attorney, will you immediately approve adequate funding for the Tasmanian Electoral Commission to carry out its statutory responsibilities? It will be a start in restoring public faith in the political process.
Honourable Attorney-General.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the independent member for Clark, Ms Johnston, for her question. Now, Mr Speaker, the Government of course notes the release of the Integrity Commission summary paper regarding Tasmania's Electoral Act offences and campaign conduct. As is always the case, we'll consider the report. It's usual practice. However, it is important to note that we're already taking action to strengthen the Electoral Act with feedback on the two bills that we have released for public consultation out there, namely the Electoral Disclosure and Funding Bill 2021 and the Electoral Matters Miscellaneous Amendments Bill 2021. Like every political party and candidate, we take into account a range of views when developing election policies. This includes getting out on the ground in local communities and hearing firsthand what they need to thrive into the future. Claiming that there is something less than fair about the practice of any one person promising funding to local communities facilities is disingenuous. Mr Speaker, I asked the member for Clark, which local community facilities fund that we had in 2021 initiative funded in Clark, for example, that you wouldn't support.
Yep. Where are the cuts?
So which of the, there's $165,000
Order.
$20,000 to
Order. I can't hear the attorney. Order.
$114,000 provided in the budget for upgrading the toilet facilities and resurfacing of the car park area at Glenorchy Community Care. Was that election bribery? I mean, Mr Speaker,
Order.
is the member now saying there was something untoward about those promises that were made? Is she saying in seeking reform in this area that a third independent party like the Tasmanian Electoral Commission or the Integrity Commission should have a say prior to any election promise being made by a candidate during an election campaign?
Wow, who wrote this?
Now, Mr Speaker,
this is not your best work.
Mr Speaker, this implements, the bill that we have out for public consultation implements recommendations as part of recommendation 1 and 2 of our electoral review final report for the benefit of the member who is now in this place. The final report makes 11 high-level recommendations for proposed reform to modernise our current system and create a political donations disclosure regime specifically for Tasmania. The review involved 2 rounds of public consultation and has already led to amendments to the Electoral Act, which commenced in 2019. Now, the recommendations in the final report broadly fall into 4 areas, namely recommendations of a technical nature that will ensure our electoral system is effective and contemporary, recommendations relating to a new disclosure regime for candidates and political parties, recommendations relating to the regulation of third-party campaigners, donors and associated entities, and a recommendation in relation to the public funding of election campaigns. Mr Speaker, our government is committed to ensuring Tasmanians have confidence in our electoral system, and a key promise of this is ensuring that our electoral system is fair, transparent, effective and contemporary. And that's why the government supports in principle all of the recommendations of that final report and has already commenced the preparation of urgent draft legislation. Now, Mr Speaker, I can advise the member for Clark that the Electoral Commission is working very closely with the Department of Justice on the development of this legislation. In relation to their capability and resourcing, As already advised previously when we announced our reforms, the Premier and Treasurer has discussed with the Tasmanian Electoral Commissioner and reassured him that all necessary resources will be made available to enable our reforms to occur. We understand that this will be a major change for the Tasmanian Electoral Commission, and we will consult closely with it on how best to transition to the new arrangements. Our government has always maintained that should the TEC require additional resources to carry out its functions, we will of course consider this through the normal budgetary processes. And I really do hope that the member for Clark, rather than just post on her Facebook, pre-prepared Facebook post criticising the government, that she takes on board that we are acting in relation to electoral reform, that we have taken on board all of the recommendations of the Electoral Act Review final report, and that you don't just simply report what you want.
Honourable member for Clark.